Hey there, and welcome to Business Over Cocktails. I'm Lauren Najar, your host and hype woman, bringing you real talk about entrepreneurship. This is the podcast where we dive into the bold whys, the messy middles, and the game-changing aha moments that lead to success. You'll hear unfiltered stories from entrepreneurs, plus bite-sized solo episodes inside the Business Chaser series, where we cut through the noise and get straight to what actually drives sales, visibility, and growth. So whether you're here to get fired up or finally feel seen in your business journey, pull up a seat, pour your favorite drink, and let's have a real conversation. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the podcast, Business Over Cocktails. I am so excited today for this conversation because I actually don't know much about this person. This is a recent connection, and I love these podcast episodes truly just to have a conversation and get to know the whys, the purpose behind some of my favorite connections in the online space and on social media. So I'm excited to learn more about Heather Miller today. She is a product management powerhouse. She is the CEO and product management consultant of her business, PDRM Consulting. And I am just so excited to have you. Thank you so much for being here. And I can't wait to learn more about you.
Thank you for having me, Lauren. I'm so glad to be here.
Yeah, I cannot wait to dig in. So I know what you do. Obviously, there's a lot of the product words in a lot of the titles you wear. So obviously, you do stuff with products. But how did you get here?
Right. So it was actually a really long story. So if you would have asked me 20 years ago if I would be sitting here today, I would have probably looked at you like you were crazy. I actually had planned to be a doctor, a surgeon, and that's not what ended up happening. And so I got my bioengineering degree and decided not to go to medical school. Then ended up moving into working in software, and then moved into working with products and loved it, and worked for a medical record software company for 13 years, landed in the product management space, and then worked with medical devices, and then decided that about a year ago that I had so much knowledge and wanted to help other product managers as well as entrepreneurs and businesses with what I knew, help them get better at releasing their own products and becoming better. That's the short answer.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, because you mentioned like you transitioned to a software company. I was going to ask you, was it medical software? So like that was a nice transition. Right, because it's so funny because I actually interviewed someone earlier today where they were a nurse and she now owns her own nail salon. And I'm like, how did you transition? Because like that is completely different than what you're doing, but there's always some synergy to a certain extent too. So do you feel that any of your let me ask you this question. Why did you want to become a doctor in the first place?
I really wanted to help people. And I also was always drawn to math, science, and helping people, which is very correlated to what I do today. If you think about products and helping people and teaching people is exactly what I do. And so it's just a different form. And even when you look at product, I still use math, science, engineering skills in product management as well as business. Every day I'm looking at my data. Every day I'm looking at the analysis of my analytics, all of it to help me grow in the business as well as helping my clients grow. So it's just all different loops of the same thing.
Yeah, I resonate a lot with that. And I think like it all stems from like the need to make an impact somehow. And I think like naturally we think of like, okay, service industry, we think of becoming a doctor or a nurse or something along those lines, because that has major impact. But I think like it's very rare to start thinking about like, yeah, there's so many other ways you can make an impact and just have a ripple effect on somebody. And, I definitely share that same sentiment of like, I love helping people, but also helping people realize their full potential. And so I don't need to be a motivational speaker to do that. I don't need to like be a life coach to do that. Like I can help them do that within their business. And so, I think it took me a while to make that connection as well and just find my way and find my path. So I resonate with a lot of that. So what does PDRM consulting stand for?
Actually stands for Product Development Risk Management. So the full company is actually both my husband and I. He is still working his full-time job, but he does cybersecurity. And so when we started the company about a year ago, we talked about eventually, if we both work together, how we would want to put both pieces together and be able to both work together under the same umbrella and not have it be just my stuff or just his stuff, and be able to mesh them. And that is where we came up with the idea of risk management. And because both things, both being able to create products in a way that meets good product development skills, product management, and being able to do things in a cybersecurity mitigated risk way, you're mitigating your risk as a company. And so that's where PDRM came from.
Yeah, that was one of the first questions I wanted to ask you, because I'm like, I don't know what your business or the acronym stands for, and I always am very curious. So, how did you get from like to the point of like wanting to create your own business? When was that a first thought?
So it has been in the back of my mind for a few years. I first had the thought a few years ago when I had heard about the concept of a fractional CPO. And I love the idea of being able to come into a business and really digging into the problems and helping them solve the why. So a lot of times, smaller companies don't have the time, the money, or the need for a full-time product management hire, but they really need some level of support from a product hire. They have the expertise of the industry, but they don't necessarily have the product expertise. And so by having that fractional help, you can go in, whether it's just a couple hours a week or coming in on just a VIP day or whatever it may be, and help them really come up with a solid roadmap to solve a lot of their problems for a fraction of the cost of a hire. And that idea lit me up many years ago. And it had always been in the back of my mind. And about a year ago, my husband and I kind of were sitting down talking, and the idea really started coming to the forefront. And through a series of events, we decided the time was now, and we decided to go ahead and launch. And I decided at the same time that I also wanted to help train earlier stage product management, because I really liked the idea of mentoring other product managers. And that was something I had been doing while I was working anyway. So I did launch I launched that type of coaching and consulting work.
Awesome. So, is there like two maybe like avenues or almost like two different business ideas? Because like you're working with like product businesses and like product management, but then you're also mentoring people.
I am. Yeah. So I do both. I do fractional work. I can go into that fractional, come in, help businesses of any size. It can be a solopreneur just needs me to come in maybe for a couple hours and kind of help them, anywhere up from, a large company that needs help with their product organization or individual product managers. And then I have different programs that can help with mentoring and training. And those run differently.
Yeah, that's really cool that you can do that. Was there ever a moment that you can like think back to where you're like, I love what I do and this is what I'm going to do forever?
I don't know. I think I've had a few instances where I think the passion has been reignited. And I think that has been something that to me has been important. And that I think every time I begin to question whether I am on the right path and whether this is the right profession for me, something will happen, and it can be something really small. And and then I realize that, yes, it is exactly what I'm doing. And it could be even something in my personal life where I end up talking about something around my job. And I realize I am using the skills of product development to solve whatever I'm doing now.
I love that. I love how it's almost like those intuitive pulls. It's like, ooh, like I feel like every entrepreneur goes through those things where it's like, am I meant to do this? Like I've articulated this a few times, especially lately, where I'll like be working after my husband and my daughter have gone to sleep and I'm just like, what am I even trying to build here? And it
Hmm.
doesn't take away from the fact of like, I love what I do because I love what I do, but it's just like, what am I even trying to do here? And then something happens and it reminds you of like, yes, that's what I'm trying to build. Or yes, there's a validation I'm seeking. And it's almost like little winks. They give you whatever you believe in, God, universe, source, whatever that is. Like you can think of it as like a God wink, or the universe is just like telling you that yes, like it's steering me onto this path for a reason, and there's some sort of divine intervention happening. So I love that you say that. And I think like as entrepreneurs, it's so important to realize those things because it is such a lonely journey and it is difficult to do that and not work a 9 to 5. I'm also super interested in going into business with your husband because I feel like that is like, that is my dream. But like my husband is that my husband is definitely like he likes his job and it's a very typical like 9 to 5 job and he like has been there forever and he loves it and he loves the people he works with and he has said multiple times that he is not an entrepreneur. He's not made to be an entrepreneur. He just is like friends with entrepreneurs, right? I think his brother was an entrepreneur for a while and he knows me obviously like and my dream though, like anytime he has an idea, anytime he wants to do something like business idea, business idea, business idea, and he's just like, no, 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 I don't think so. I'm like, but I can run the show, I can do it. So I would love to ask just like a deeper question on that. Have you guys ever worked together in that capacity?
We we have worked together many years ago. So actually would have been about 16 years ago. I worked for an IT consulting company and he was working for a company that through my company, we placed people into like specific locations as on-site IT people, and they worked there full time. And then we also did managed services as well. But we worked together because he was one of the IT people that my company had. So I actually had to put his time into the system. And if he was late putting his time in, I had to call and yell at him. And so many years ago, yes, we actually had to work together, which was about 16 years ago, which was not fun. But now, as far as him and I working together, he was joking the other day. He's like, well, what if my services actually take off farther than yours? And then I was like, it is what it is. Like, he's like, because cybersecurity is such like a hot button topic. And I was like, well, I'd still have to project manage your stuff. And he's like, well, yeah, you would, because I can't manage myself. But he, again, like your husband, he's happy in his 9-to-5 job. He likes it. It's stable for our family, which is great. The ups and downs of business is the case, given that we are only a year old. We're still so new. So, but, it is our dream for both of us to be full-time in the business so that we can, as both of our children are through college, to be able to travel when we want and do what we want to do. But, obviously that's in the future.
Yeah, it's all about that time freedom. And I think a lot of people share that same thing as well, where they were in a 9-to-5 or they were in some sort of career where they're like, nope, I don't want to trade time for money anymore. I would rather just build my business and have the freedom. And I've heard that story several times through like recording these episodes where time freedom is just so important. And I mean, we hear about financial freedom and that's great, but I'm starting to hear more and more about time freedom. And I think that's the true want at the end of the day. My husband and I actually have also worked together. So that's why I wanted to ask that. I say very quickly that he was my boss before, like that's how we met. He was my superior. And then we actually didn't start dating until like a year after he had left the company, but we worked really well together. And I guess like he was my superior, but I had another boss above him. So like we worked at a bank. He was an assistant manager. We had a manager that we all listened to, but he was still my superior. And we had to work together a lot because I was one of the supervisors. So we got along very well, but we weren't friends outside of work or anything. I actually found him kind of annoying, but we did work really well together. I just found him annoying because he would always make me do his work. But also too, when I was trying to work, he would always like talk to me and like talk to me about movies and like engage, with me when I was trying to do his work or trying to focus on my own work. And of course, I would get blamed for chatting too much. But anyways, we did work together. We actually worked really well together. And so I think that's what I always go back to because, we've been married now 9 years and we met like 13 years ago. So if I go back to 13 years ago and like thinking about him and like when we started dating, I remember like, ooh, I remember you from the bank. So like there was like weirdness there. And I remember like we would always have this joke of like, you have a bank voice. Like that's so weird. So it took me so long to decondition from that. But then I think about that now, like, oh, I think that we would work really well together. And he just,
Mhm.
he doesn't see it yet. I see the vision. I see it. I see it. But no, I love that so much. And that's so
Yeah.
exciting that you guys are doing that together. I want to focus on like your clients and
Yeah.
like who do you specifically work with? I know you said like solopreneurs or like companies, but like and obviously product based, but what are some of the companies or types of products you've worked with?
So from that side, I mean, typically the companies that we work with are fairly small, but they don't have to be. Those are the ones that we've engaged with thus far. Larger companies tend to have much larger or longer lead times because you have to get on their, approved vendor list and all of that. So they're longer lead times. But small companies, small to medium products, the idea of a product, whenever you're talking about product management, can be a little bit of a misnomer. A lot of times people think when you're talking about a product manager, most people think of a software product manager, honestly, and like that tech bro type product manager. And that's not the case. A product manager actually can be any type of product. It can be a physical product. It can be a service. It can be software. So product manager can encompass anything. So it could be really anything. Most of what I've done thus far is around software, just because connections that I've had thus far, but it doesn't really have to be.
How do you help somebody? Like, what would be the transformation of working with you?
So really, a lot of what we've done so far is really sitting down with somebody and looking at what transformation they want to give their customers, honestly, and where they are now and what they want to give them and what that path looks like and how they can get them there in a very specific fashion so that they're delivering in small pieces so they can give very incremental steps to their clients in small chunks so they can get continuous feedback, because we really should be building in public to get that continual feedback loops. And so what we want to do is help them get that feedback loop immediately and really understand what that MVP looks like immediately. The other thing we're helping them do is identify what their customer segments are and really understand what that looks like. It could be that we're sitting down just for an MVP day, kind of looking with VIP, could be a couple of hours. It could be that I'm coming in and really trying to help stand up a product organization, helping a founder really understand what product management prioritization is. So they're not, some founders kind of are looking all over the place and, they have one idea today and then they forget about that idea and they're off to the next. And I mean, I've worked for a few that they forget what they asked you to do. So I had a boss like that. He forgot what you asked you to do from one week to the next. And it was horrible. I was like, you asked me that 2 weeks ago. I've already done it. It's finished. Don't worry about it. I'm like, it was horrible. But that type of thing. So we really do offer a whole lot of services, but it really is very contingent. But really what we're helping you do, it breaks down to really we're helping you identify your priorities and your customer segments.
Yeah. And I don't have a lot of experience in the product-based industry. I typically help service providers, and I've recently kind of, again, like gone to solopreneurs and into their businesses to help them with like maybe specific things like marketing or digital presence. But like all of this is all brand new to me and I don't know much about it, but I think like what I can resonate with is regardless of what kind of business you have, like you wear a lot of hats. And that seems to be a conversation that I've been having a lot today and just through these episodes. And I recorded an episode with a fractional CFO. And while you think immediately like, okay, chief financial officer, someone's going to help you with your numbers and finances, but there's some sort of other coaching that goes along with that, regardless of like for you, for instance, you said that you would come in as a fractional CPO and, this other person is a fractional CFO. But I think there's a lot of like overlap when it comes to business coaching, right? Like you need to know your numbers. You need to understand like what products work. Like, yes, you need to understand your numbers. Like we need to have boundaries around actually reviewing our numbers. And that is coaching the leader or coaching the CEO or however they want to be addressed. And like I do that all the time. That's what I do. I'm a business coach. So I
Mm-hmm.
help people, through like that kind of stuff or like realizing some things. And so it's just so interesting. Like we say fractional, pieces. Like I'm a fractional CMO in some people's businesses as well through my agency. And there are many times where I have to walk people through maybe some mindset blocks, or I have to talk about offers, or I have to give pep talks. And so are there like big mindset blocks when it comes to product business leaders?
There is. A lot of times with product leaders, it's almost an executive presence issue a lot of times. So a lot of times with product, you think you have to say yes a lot to customers. You think for customers, you need to say yes to everything a customer wants, and you don't. That's a big misconception. So when customers ask for things, in order to be customer-centric as a business, and a lot of people want to be customer-centric. I mean, I think we all do as a business owner. You think you should say yes to everything they want, but you don't. And you can't be. Honestly, that is one of the biggest misconceptions. Because if you say yes to everything, nothing is important. Because nothing can be important if you say yes to everything. And so that mindset shift needs to be that you really need to be able to prioritize what you're saying yes to. And so there has to be some level of prioritization and kind of really thought behind what you are saying yes to customers. And you have to really be diligent about that. And so I think for especially a CEO where you're really trying to prioritize the customer, it can be hard. And I think that in that instance where you have somebody who can kind of be a little bit removed when you are kind of, you're a product person and not the CEO, it's a little bit easier.
I love that. So you mentioned the term executive presence though, and I really want to
Yeah.
I want to dive into that term because that is a question I had because it's all over your stuff, your website.
It is.
So what does executive presence mean in your world?
So a lot of times when this is more specific when you're a true product manager, and it's a really big thing, especially for women in product management, and especially in the software and tech world. That is the big thing. The tech broy software world that exists, it can happen where women product managers, and I will say, when you look at product management in the tech world, it's probably the biggest percentage of women in comparatively than other areas of tech. It's hard for women to have the same level of executive presence that's the tech bros have, essentially. And so it is something that I really push hard on, is that you have to almost exude it before you really have it. And you need to push yourself. You need to make sure that you are speaking up and you are able to clarify your ideas and be assertive and really speak your mind in meetings and not worry about what they're going to say. And once you are able to do that, you are more likely to be able to get your ideas pushed through.
I love that so much. And I love that you made the focus on women because I think that is also a misconception, or maybe that's just an assumption is yes, we think of tech, we think of Silicon Valley, we think of tech bros, right? And it is a male dominated industry. So I think it is super important. And I like how you have a term or a phrase for that. I like that
Yeah, it
you,
is. It's
yeah.
so, and I mean, it's hard. And I will say, I am super, super lucky that I have worked with some of the best male colleagues in my career. I have worked with some of the most amazing guys. I've been super lucky, but that is not everybody's case. And
Mhm.
I realize that.
Yeah.
So I count myself very, very, very lucky to have the background that I have had with that. But I can't say it's been all sunshine and rainbows for me, but comparatively, I have been lucky.
I like that. Have you ever struggled though with your own leadership voice?
Yes. And honestly, one of the reasons I think I've struggled with my leadership voice, and part of it was when I did first leave my corporate role, I really struggled when I first left and started my business because I didn't have like those big tech names on my resume. I struggled with my leadership voice. Yes, I have a great background. I have an engineering degree, I have an MBA, I have almost 2 decades of experience in my background. I've released some amazing products. I don't have any of those big tech names. And so I struggled with my voice. So I had to wrestle with a lot of that and push myself. And Honestly, it took me probably 6 to 8 months and a lot of really deep dives into my own kind of thought process and being scared of what people were going to think about me before I really felt comfortable. And I am so proud of what I have done since I have made that leap. But yes, it has been night and day. I think people who have seen that transformation have been kind of amazed at what I've done and have noticed that transformation.
I love that. I love that you did the work to get there, right?
Hmm.
Because I think a lot of people don't do that. A lot of people just rely on either people like stuff being handed to them or like their own expertise, or they just default on like, I'm not good enough, so I'm not going to live up to whatever. I'm going to live up to everyone's expectations and not like what I'm actually capable of. But one thing that I want to ask you, just to dive in a little bit deeper with that, because you do help people with executive presence and namely women, how do you personally stay confident when you're leading other people?
Honestly, I stay confident around really, I look at a couple things that I do. One, I realize what I have done in my past. I look at the things I have accomplished and know what I've done. Two, I actually keep a Google file on my hard drive, a file in my thing of notes from people. So it has notes from people that have written nice things from previous colleagues, whether they be Slack messages. I have kudos from when I've left companies. I have notes from previous colleagues, those types of things. Those days where everything is going wrong and you can't, that everything feels like it's falling apart and you just need to pick me up. I read them. Those are the types of things I look at. And then the third thing I do when I let myself feel it sometimes, and then I take a deep breath, and I usually realize a couple of things. I either need to rest and relax when I am thinking that, and I need a break. I need to get outside, honestly, when I feel less confident. And I need to look at my wins because more than likely, if I'm feeling that way, something else is off balance because that's kind of what it usually is. So that's the three things I usually do when I'm feeling less confident.
I recently came to a point maybe about a year and a half ago or so. My daughter's only 2 years old. She literally just turned 2. So in the last, of course, like couple of years, I'm going through postpartum depression, and I've had my business well before I was ever pregnant or wanted to be a mom. And so, being a first time mom, I didn't realize, like, I thought I would like go back to work after a month, right? And I think it some people can, some people don't take like a maternity leave as an entrepreneur, but I definitely took some time off and I slowly came back to working on my business. And the one thing I noticed is when I actually started taking care of myself and the things that you mentioned, going for a walk, like as simple as going for a walk and going for a walk outside. Thankfully, I had her in June, where then I was able to be outside and walk. I live near Chicago, so of course it's not great year
Right?
round. But thankfully, like throughout the whole summer and well into the fall, I went for a walk every morning. And not only did that help my confidence with just like how I showed up, but like that helps just confidence in general. Like you feel better about
Hmm.
yourself. You're going for a walk outside. And I would listen to like a meditation as well. And so I love that you said those things
Hmm.
because confidence doesn't come from like listening to like affirmations, and it doesn't come from like one of the things that you mentioned is like reading your wins and reminding yourself of like really positive testimonials, but I think like that helps, but then there's also the aspect of like you need to take care of your mind and your body. And honestly, like over the last year I did like pelvic floor therapy. I've gone to therapy for the first time, and I did physical therapy on an old knee injury that I've had. And just like really working so hard and being so consistent in those areas. Like I don't even recognize myself where I was a year ago or even a year and a half ago. And I know that I have this confidence, but I also know that like I need to keep working at it so then I can show up for people and I have the capacity to lead other people as well. So love that you said that. I love that you shared that because I think people don't realize that. And that's something I would like shout from the rooftops. It's like, just go for a walk, go drink some water, go outside, go get some sunlight.
Yeah, on my daily to-do list has water and walk. And I live in Pittsburgh, so again, wet all the time. I have a walking pad that sits behind my desk if it's rainy. So I know that if I can, or if I can't go outside, I will get up. I will either do laps around the house or get on the walking pad. And that's something I will do if I just need to get up. Because I know that if I start to just kind of feel antsy, just something isn't right, I kind of feel like something's wrong. I just need a break. And just
Hmm.
something's wrong.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so good that we found those things too. Like, and I think like we can say that like a walk maybe, but like sometimes you just need to stretch or listen to meditation. So find what works for you
Mm-hmm.
truly.
Yep.
So what's one piece of advice you wish you could give every woman in the tech and or product based industries?
Find a good mentor or
Mm.
somebody that you can trust to talk to.
How would you find a good mentor?
It can be somebody at your job or somebody, it doesn't even necessarily have to be in tech. It could be somebody from the Women in Tech group. There's a lot of those around. Women in Tech online, Women in Product. So there is a Women in Product group on Facebook. Join that. Women in Product on LinkedIn. Join those groups. They are helpful. Find your group. I know a lot of large organizations, if you're part of a larger organization, try to join or try to start resource groups for women in product and women in tech. They are wonderful organizations. I think that's one of the main things to help. Allow yourself to help each other because I think it really helps.
So we're recording this in June. We don't have a date when this will air, so hopefully this will air soon. I chuckle because at the moment I don't have a launch date, which I already explained. But from right now until so we have about 6 months left of 2025, right? We're in 2025.
Yeah.
2025. What are you most excited about for the rest of this year?
Oh, what am I so excited about? I really am just excited to kind of keep going. I have a lot of new projects coming. I'm launching a new course on Maven this fall about strategic communications for product managers. So that will be launching August or September. So I am working on that. I don't have a launch date for that either. So that's cohort based. So the first cohort will launch in August or September. If it goes over well, obviously we will have a second cohort. And then all my other enrollments are evergreen. So, you could just reach out to me and everything else is just kind of continual.
Nice. And so where can people connect with you?
I am on Instagram at PDRM Consulting. You can find me on LinkedIn. I post both on our business page, which is PDRM Consulting, as well as my personal page, which is Heather Miller. And then we also have our website, which is pdrmconsulting.com, which you can find our newsletter on there. So all those different places. I do post different things on all of our social media, so it's not the same on all three. I post different things. Instagram, I try to do more of the behind the scenes, the fun stuff. And then our LinkedIn is a little bit more story based with more actionable business content I try to be a little bit more kind of behind the scenes on Instagram.
Nice. So all the places, and as they say, everything will be linked in the show notes.
Yep.
Well, thank you so much, Heather.
Thank
This
you.
was such a good conversation, and I loved hearing more about, again, an industry I'm not familiar with, but I love the introspective into women in tech and you giving a voice to them, but also helping just like business leaders have that executive presence. And I think all of that is so important, and I can resonate with a lot of that. So thank you so
Yeah.
much for being here.
Thank you for having me, Lauren. I appreciate it.
All right. And then Heather's going to join us later this week in her Business Chaser episode. So I'm super excited to welcome her back, and make sure you tune in. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Business Over Cocktails, where real stories and bold business moves come to life. If this episode lit something up in you, share it with a friend, tag me at Lauren Najar or the podcast page at Business Over Cocktails. Make sure to leave a quick review as well. It helps more than you know. Until next time, keep chasing what matters and building the business that feels like you. Cheers!